All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dan Bell from the Hampton Roads Innovation Collaborative, your region's tech council. It's a 501c6 that was established in the late 90s to further the missions of technology business and business in general. And so we like to bring educational programs to our region to help make people a little bit more aware what some of the regional assets are out there that help out. We are a completely volunteer organization. We're virtual. We have no facilities. We have no paid staff. We do this for the mission, and we're keeping ourselves on the ice through COVID and all that. So I do want to thank Cox for being a series sponsor for Tech Tuesdays. I don't think we have anybody with Cox online today. If so, please speak up and you can have the microphone for a couple of minutes, but I didn't see anybody. But our thanks goes out to Cox, and my thanks go out to our participants as well. I'd like to introduce Mr. Anthony Tony Cirilli, Vice President of Operations at Genedge. And I'm really excited about this. You all saw the write-up, but I'll read the opening paragraph. Genedge is Virginia's only manufacturing and economic development organization partnered with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, a public-private partnership that empowers small and medium-sized manufacturers to grow and thrive through educational resources, industry connections, and best practices. So Tony and I were chatting about what a tremendous asset Genedge is. And at our recent HRIC board meeting, we had members saying that Genedge is great, and it's very active in the manufacturing lane, but not solely in the manufacturing lane. And I'll let Tony speak to that. So with that, again, thanks to everybody for joining us today. And Tony, the microphone, the video camera, the slides, they're all yours.
Thank you very much, Dan. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Tony Cirilli. I'm the Vice President of Operations with Genedge. I've been with the organization now for coming up on 13 years. Before that, my background was in manufacturing, and particularly in the automotive industry. Spent a little more than 10 years with Siemens Automotive, used to be Bendix in Newport News. And before that with Caterpillar out in the Illinois area. And before that, I was in the military on submarines doing nuclear power, and left that and went into commercial nuclear power for a couple of years. But Genedge, our mission really is to become Virginia's best resource for manufacturing and industry to help them innovate, compete, and grow. And so really trying to accelerate manufacturing growth and industrial clusters to create good quality jobs. So how did we come about? Back in 1992, we were launched by the General Assembly as a public-private partnership, really focused on the loss of the furniture, tobacco, and textile industries in South Central Virginia. One of the drivers for our foundation was a state senator, A.L. Philpott, and he served the Martinsville area. And so that's actually where our headquarters is down in Martinsville, Virginia, although we have reach across the state. In 1994, we were brought into the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, the national network, and became Virginia's representative in that. And we went from serving mainly South Central Virginia to the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, plus the District of Columbia. And originally we were known as the Virginia Philpott Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And our enabling legislation still has us listed as that, doing business as Genedge Alliance. And the reason we shifted from VP, MEP was, other than it being a mouthful, it did highlight the word manufacturing. And at that point, we were doing a lot of work in non-manufacturing segments with the state government of Virginia. We did a good bit of work with the federal government, the prison systems of national prison systems, Unicor, state prison systems, insurance companies, banks, engineering firms. So we wanted to broaden our reach, and we rebranded ourselves as Genedge. And like I said, we're part of the Manufacturing Extension Partnership National Network. So each state plus the Puerto Rico locality has what's called an MEP center. And so these centers focus on their geographic locations to really help out, focused on small to mid-sized manufacturers in particular. But the networks, because they're local, they can focus on the regional and the needs of the regional manufacturers. But it also gives us the ability to reach out and partner with other networks. One of the big projects I've got going on now is it's a national project. It's centered out of Virginia, but there's also some facilities in Tennessee and North Dakota and Minnesota, and we're able to reach out and partner with those MEP centers in those states to provide services to an organization to where they're getting the same high quality service across state boundaries. So the MEP National Network, it consists of, like it says here, about 1,400 trusted advisors and experts with around 375 different locations. The way we're set up in Virginia is, like I had mentioned, our headquarters is in Martinsville, but we have offices in Newport News and also Richmond. And then we have people who live across the state. So we're structured into a kind of a sales team. This would be our sales team here, but they're more than that. They're trusted advisors. They live in the community, and they have the relationships with the manufacturers in those communities and are in tune with the needs and some of the challenges of those communities. When these people identify a particular need, they can reach back into the operations organization to meet that need. And some of the things that we can provide services on, we've broken into 4 main components of that. We can do the growth end, so the front end of a business, if they're trying to create a new product or branch out into other products or new markets, we focus on helping them develop a strategy, helping them look at the market for a particular product or service, and then help them commercialize that, help bring them from conception into deployment into the market. And then when we actually get into the manufacturing of it, there's the operations side, which deals with process improvement, which is really focused on cutting costs in a facility using a lot of times the Lean tool set or Six Sigma tool set, or combine the Lean Six Sigma tool set, very powerful. We also do organizational development, helping organizations grow their supervisory skills for their floor staff, help them to try and become employer of choice. One of the biggest things that we're hearing out there for challenges is people are having a hard time finding employees and retaining employees. And it seems like it's gotten worse after the pandemic for various reasons. A lot of it is demographics. We've got an aging workforce, and it seems like up until recently, manufacturing was kind of it was perceived as an unattractive vocation to enter into. Although the perception of manufacturing compared to the old days, it's really kind of a dated view. Today's manufacturing facilities can be very high tech, cleaned, air conditioned, things like that. So very fulfilling, very rewarding occupation if one chooses to get into that. We also help out with risk management and quality systems. We do some work in the cybersecurity area. There's a lot of Department of Defense suppliers. The defense industrial base in Virginia is very large. So we're helping companies become prepared for the cybersecurity requirements that are flowing down from the DoD and their contracts. And then we also get into advanced manufacturing and automation. And that's one of those things that can be used to kind of date myself. Growing up in the 80s, it was always, I'd always heard that the robotics was going to replace people, that you're going to lose your job if they bring in the robots. And now automation and advanced manufacturing is really a way to combat that challenge of finding employees by bringing in some collaborative robots or cobots. It's a way to supplement the workforce and take some of the people that are doing more of the unskilled labor that can be done by a robot and upskill them, train them to do the more rewarding and more technically demanding jobs. But Virginia, or who we are a Commonwealth of Virginia political subdivision. So we are part of the state of Virginia. We also have that tie to the federal government through the NIST MEP. And then we also, we do charge fees for the majority of our work. So there's a skin in the game element for the manufacturers with that. We have a board of trustees that provides a fiduciary oversight. They're appointed by the governor, and they include state positions such as Commerce Secretary, things like that, university presidents, community college presidents, and also leaders from industry. So it's a good mix of private and public oversight, make sure that the tax money is being spent in a very reasonable and responsible way. One thing that's kind of unique about the MEP system is that once we engage with a client and we complete our services, there's a third-party survey house that will come behind us and under the NIST MEP that will actually reach out to the clients and do a confidential survey to see if the client felt like they were getting a good value for their money. And some of the things that they ask is, have you increased your sales or retained your sales due to your services? What about your cost savings? Has the service allowed you to invest in your capital equipment? What types of jobs were retained or created? And we're graded on that. We have to pretty much continually prove that we're providing good value to the clients out there. And I do want to apologize. My slide deck became corrupt and I had to recreate it this morning. I wasn't able to get through it all. But so we deal with independent manufacturers. They'll either reach out to us or our regional growth managers will identify a need. We also have the ability to tap into some grants. So often we can underwrite the cost of serving a client with grants. We've done that historically with DoD Cyber in that area. We've done some work historically with the Tobacco Commission out in southwestern Virginia and the coal, some of the displaced industries out there. One of the biggest ones we've done recently is partnering with Go Virginia. It started with the pandemic. We partnered with Go Virginia to help manufacturers in the state kind of pivot and get into retooling for personal protective equipment. So manufacturers that wanted to get into making masks or gowns, we helped them do that in response to the pandemic. And after that initial year with the PPE, Go Virginia kind of re-upped their effort. And really what we're working on now is helping Virginia manufacturers in critical segments to try and support manufacturing in Virginia to either strengthen manufacturing or bring in manufacturing or kind of reshore from overseas or near shore. So bringing manufacturing back in Virginia from say China or Mexico has been a large focus up till now. But originally we were partnered with a couple different organizations around the state. We partnered with Wytheville Community College that handled basically the western part of Virginia. And also we had a partnership with Old Dominion University, the Technology Acceleration Center, TAC Center, and they had handled basically the Hampton Roads area. Due to some shifting priorities, ODU TAC wanted to get more into investor or startups. And so Genedge has grown, and we've actually taken over responsibility for the entire Commonwealth. So we now have people that support the entire state. So to my detriment, I tend to talk fast. And so I'm really, that's all I had prepared, but I was hoping that we could kind of open it up to some questions and have a discussion about Genedge or some of the other things around the state.
Absolutely. Tony, thanks for the information. I've got a few questions, and folks know that they can turn their mics back on, cameras back on for the Q&A session. Again, use chat or whatever means you feel comfortable with. But I'll seed the ground with some initial questions. So it's great supporting all of Virginia. How would you rate Hampton Roads with respect to its manufacturing presence compared to other regions across the state?
One of the strong points about Hampton Roads is there's a tremendous amount of shipbuilding and ship repair in Hampton Roads. We have done a good bit of work even with, I said that we focus mainly on small to mid-sized manufacturers, but one of our longest clients has been Newport News Shipbuilding. So we have a contract with actually the Department of the Navy in Washington, D.C. to try and help Newport News with their processes around building aircraft carriers, and that's branched out into the submarines. So we do a good bit of work on site in the shipyard, but also over the years, we've done a good bit of work with the supply chains of Hampton Roads or of the Newport News Shipbuilding. And a lot of them are in Hampton Roads or across Virginia. There was also a push with coal out in Southwest Virginia, trying to diversify them and get them into the shipbuilding to be able to support. Because even though there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of capacity in Hampton Roads for shipbuilding, it doesn't fill the need. So there's still a lot of need there, particularly with welders and machinists. So trying to get that stood up. There's the push now to get into the wind, offshore wind is an upcoming area for that. So really Hampton Roads is a great opportunity for growth, particularly, like I said, a lot of DoD, a lot of shipbuilding.
Do you work with Cannon, Virginia at all up in Newport News?
Yes, I've worked with quite a few people from Cannon, and so Cannon does a great job with. They started out with making the copiers and printers, but have really branched out into a lot of mold maintenance and mold design, refurbishment, things like that. They were one of the ones who reached out to me at the start of the pandemic, and they wanted to help. They wanted to do something to help. So they're a really great member of the community. They tend to have a lot of internal resources larger companies tend to have more internal process improvement resources and things like that, so they don't tap into Genedge as a resource a lot of times. But I've got a lot of respect for Canon in Newport News. Was there anything in particular, Dan, about Canon? Up, you're on mute, sir.
I'm sorry, button click issues. No issues in particular. I'm a former Canon employee and was very familiar with what they've done up in Newport News, et cetera. And yeah, it's just rewarding to hear that they're engaged with you. So you indicate that small to medium sized businesses are your sweet spot. Anytime I say something that's off base, just let me know. But take us through like a small to medium sized company that says, I'm building a widget and I may need some help from Genedge. What's the typical process that you follow, the workflow, the work output where you say this, we can take you from basic raw manufacturing capability on a smaller scale to leading edge? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. It really depends upon where they're starting at. We like to meet them where they are. And when you start looking at really small companies that have maybe 2 to 5 people, there are some things that we can do to help them in terms of developing their strategy, developing a plan to market. But in that area, that's more of an angel investor type of environment. Above that, we start getting into where we really can make a difference with them. We'll go through their core competencies. What are their strengths? What if they've got a particular product that they're trying to bring to market? We can do some research based off of some of our ties into the network and to some other larger nonprofits in terms of how to bring it to market. We can look at how to commercialize it, develop a plan and a strategy for them to bring it to market. If they're getting into manufacturing, we can help them with a plant layout to try and get off the ground running so they've got good flow through their processes. It's an efficient process. We talk about supplier relationships, how to develop those, how to bring material in, how to set up their quality systems that may be needed depending upon their customer base. If they're an established manufacturer and they're trying to scale up, we can look at the best way to implement using lean principles, scaling up their manufacturing to increase their output at a reasonable cost. So really, it depends upon where they are and what needs they have. Whether it's, like I said, from product design for manufacturability to trying to increase your output to lower cost. We tend to try and work with organizations that want to either grow or the ones that are kind of happy the way they are. There are some lifestyle type businesses around the state. They really don't have a desire to grow. They're kind of happy where they are. That's not really where we're called to help.
Now, you talk about lean manufacturing. Is Six Sigma still a thing?
It is, and what we do is we teach and we use what's called Lean Six Sigma, which it's more than just using both. It really is a combination of both of those methodologies that allows you to use tools from each. The majority of manufacturers use mainly lean tools, but what Six Sigma does is it gives them a good foundational discipline, a good methodology, and a good way to have change management and project management. With some of the more technical advanced manufacturing situations, you can get into more of the traditional Six Sigma processes where you're really trying to come up with a way to reduce variation, and you can get in some heavier statistical tools. But a lot of the tools are just out of the basic lean tool set, and are very, very effective.
That's great. Tony, do you guys ever do any kind of forums, business expos, manufacturing based, calling in some of your clients and interested parties to discuss what Genedge is doing in the manufacturing community?
We have, and we're getting back to that. Like you and I were talking a little bit before we started. The pandemic really threw a wrench into a lot of things. We used to do quite a bit of open enrollment type of seminars, we had some expos scheduled in the Hampton Roads area before the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, it just, you all know, it kind of shut everything down. We were able to go to mainly remote working. A lot of the manufacturers didn't necessarily want us in their plants, but a lot of the things we were able to do remotely through that. And we've gotten to the point now where we're back, for the most part, back in facilities. It really depends upon where you are in the state. Northern Virginia, they tend to be a little gun shy still, but down in the Shenandoah Valley and the western part of the state, they've never really been against people being in their plant once the first couple waves hit of the pandemic. But I just got off a call earlier this morning with my marketing person, trying to come up with a schedule to get some more things out there in the community. So.
Very good. Are you familiar with a group called the Association for Manufacturing Excellence, AME.org?
I am.
Do you work with them? A very good friend of mine is their president, is Kimberly Humphrey. And she took that job right before COVID hit, hours before COVID hit. And it's been very, very challenging for her with respect to getting stabilized and moving forward, but she's persevering. But tell us how you interface with them.
Let's see. Well, Kimberly Humphrey, I used to work with her at Siemens. So we weren't working directly together at the time because she left shortly after I arrived. But I know she's got a good history with the shipyard and also with AME. She's reached out to me to try and come up with a way that we can partner better. But really, it's kind of, we're at the beginning stages of trying to build that relationship.
Well, that's great. Sounds like it'll be a good one when you can get to that point. So anybody else have any questions for Tony? I know that this is not, in many cases, your lanes in terms of manufacturing. This obviously is very, very precise. Bernd, you're back online. Do you have some questions for Tony?
Yeah, I actually do have a question. But first of all, Tony, pleasure meeting you. And maybe at a different time, you and I talk a little bit about your history with Caterpillar. I've spent 25 years in heavy equipment, and Caterpillar was always my competitor. So yeah, that's that's always a great conversation to have. Anyway, appreciate giving us here the update on what Genedge is for. So I'm asking this question here a little bit on behalf of my existing clients right now. What do you do on the software side of things? When we were talking about manufacturing, I do understand that. Would software development fall under this, or is that not something you're covering?
We have dabbled a little bit in software development, particularly with the current grant that we're working with Go Virginia. But software development is not something we've typically done. Which the piece that we're in now, we helped the manufacturer define the requirements. It was more of a management aspect of it, helping to define the requirements, helping them find the right coding house to develop the software and just kind of tracking it. But really not a sweet spot of ours.
Okay, so no, understood. How about grant writing? Is that something you get involved in?
Oh, we do. We have, that's an excellent point that I forgot to bring up. We rely heavily on a network of trusted third parties. So we've got some internal resources for Genedge, but we don't have the particular capacity or the particular skill set. We've got a network of third parties that we've gone through and vetted, that we work closely with, and we do have some third parties that are skilled with grant writing, either with the federal government or state governments, things like that.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions from the participants? So I have a couple more. Tony, so how does Genedge, or does Genedge get involved in the colleges? You talked about your relationship with ODU, but I'll expand that to not to incentivize, but to let the graduates know, concept to commercial type stuff, right? I mean, do you have ideas? Do you have IP? Do you have a product that you want to build? Are you afraid of entering into the manufacturing arena? Do you speak to the younger people about that?
We do, and there's two particular examples I'd like to bring up. One is with ODU. ODU has a makerspace that is run by the students that can manufacture things that are their ideas that they want to bring to market, anywhere from additive manufacturing to welding, woodwork, things like that. So the relationship we have with the ODU makerspace is, if we've got a client in the region that has a particular challenge, that they're having difficulty coming up with, say, prototyping or things like that, we are kind of the catalyst between that client and the ODU makerspace. We can enlist the students to work, under faculty supervision. The students work with the particular client in the Hampton Roads area to kind of work through a real life challenge. Another thing that we're doing, that we've done for several years, is through Virginia Tech, the industrial engineering students, and as part of their senior design project, we partner them with manufacturers around the state. And so they'll spend that last year working with a manufacturer in Virginia to come up with a real solution to a problem. And that could range from software design, process improvement. It depends upon the expertise of the Virginia Tech grad. And the reason we did that, partner with Virginia Tech, was twofold. One was to help manufacturers in the state with some kind of low cost assistance. It helps the students get some real world experience, but then also we tend, when we educate engineers in Virginia, they tend to leave Virginia and go other places. We don't really have a lot of pull to get engineers into some of these not necessarily remote communities, but some parts of Virginia that aren't necessarily attractive to engineers because they just don't know about them. So we help by getting those engineering students out into the communities. It kind of educates them that these opportunities exist around Virginia, with the intent or the hope of trying to keep some of them in the Commonwealth once they graduate.
Is your relationship with ODU exclusive, the makerspace engagement, or do you work with other maker spaces in the region? For instance, 757 Makerspace, which has locations both in Norfolk and now in Hampton, in Fort Monroe.
Yeah, I'm aware of 757 Makerspace on a personal level, but from a Genedge level, we deal particularly with the ODU Makerspace. We also did have some relationships with the College of Engineering with particular projects that come up. But as far as the regional makerspaces, really, we don't work with the 757 Makerspace at all.
Is that something just because of the size, the scope, the formality of relationships with organizations like ODU?
I don't think it's anything that we've made a choice not to do. I just don't think it's something that the opportunity has presented itself, and that just I think a matter of timing, and if there was an opportunity and a way to help, with our mission of helping manufacturers, I think we would be open to that.
I might give my buddy Bo Turner a call, and I don't know if you know Bo, but maybe send him your way for a conversation. I'm not sure if he's interested either, but he's a good guy. So anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I had a question.
All right, shoot.
Well, Tony, thank you for taking the time to give us some idea of the breadth of manufacturing that exists.
Ed, is that you, by the way?
Yes, yes, across our Commonwealth. And when you were talking earlier about Newport News shipbuilding, I was wondering if there are many companies in Virginia and which parts of Virginia that are suppliers to Newport News shipbuilding.
Yes, there are. We've it's been a couple of years, but we did a couple initiatives with the shipyard to help their supply base, and a lot of the suppliers were local to Newport News. I spent a lot of time going through different manufacturers in Newport News, Hampton, Norfolk areas, but also around the state. There's machine shops and things around the state that supply that. And as I mentioned a little while ago too, there was an effort. It's kind of funny because at times we have worked with Department of Defense suppliers to try and diversify them into the commercial space so that they're not necessarily as dependent upon the government financing of ships. If an aircraft carrier slips a year or two in terms of funding, that can really hurt a supply house that concentrates on them for business. And then we've also been in at times where we've tried to get people who are in the commercial space to focus in on supplying the defense industrial base, particularly Newport News shipbuilding. And so we had a couple initiatives out in Southwest Virginia. There's a lot of manufacturers that supported the coal and coal mining industry with manufacturing, and we worked with them to try and get them into particularly supporting Newport News as a machine shop and supplier for them. So I would say it's scattered around the state, but really the concentration is in the Hampton Roads area, less in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia has a lot of engineering and cyber facilities, experts up there, a lot of headquarters, and not so much manufacturing. Does that answer your question, Ed?
Yes, it does. And I'm assuming those suppliers cover a wide range of products, from pumps to electrical housing to communication systems?
Yes, we've run the gamut with, there's a lot of, I mean, there's cable manufacturers, there's houses that make panels, put panels together and populate the electronics on the inside. There's a lot of sheet metal bending for ventilation and lockers and things like that. A lot of machining, whether it be for pumps or other types of fixturing for that, large welding pieces.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic when a business essentially has one customer, that being the government or the Department of Defense. And I guess that's the proverbial putting all your eggs in one basket. But there are certain unique challenges when there's one client or the majority of business is for one client, as you had mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I've worked, there's one very good manufacturer of weldments and machinery that aren't in Hampton Roads, but they had gotten very comfortable with more and more of their business being related to aircraft carrier construction, up to where it was roughly 90% of their business. And that it made me very uncomfortable for them, because you talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. You're right.
Great, good question. Anybody else? Okay, last call. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Claim a dividend. It's about 12:47. So good content, very informative. Tony, I thank you for taking the time to let us know. And I think that, as we discussed before, I think Genedge is a tremendous asset and resource for the region. And I think that we'll do our part to help spread the word that this is a great business for our region. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to help educate us.
Well,
Go ahead, Tony.
it was my pleasure, and I want to thank you for inviting me. And again, if you have any questions, our website, it's genedge.org, because we are a state agency. We're not a .com, we're a .org. Feel free to peruse that and reach out to me or anyone else on the Genedge team.
Will do, and we will share the recording and your slides, if you can email them over to me with our participants, and it'll be up on our website. And once again, thank you to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Dan, for organizing such an informative program today.
You bet. My pleasure. All right, everybody. Have a great day.
Dan. Thanks, Tony.
Welcome.
All right. Take care, everybody.